The following review contains significant plot spoilers. Please watch at your own risk.
But the wine is quite excellent. Although for such a grand meal, I had rather expected a claret.
Of course. Unfortunately, our cellar is rather poorly stocked with clarets.
Mouton Rothschild is a claret. And I've smelt that aftershave before, and both times I've smelt a rat. Well, he's certainly left with his tail between his legs.
When George Lazenby left the role of James Bond after just one film, the producers at Eon were left the job of finding another new actor to play the role. After various suggestions, including American actors John Gavin and even Adam West, the producers decided that only one man could do the job. They managed to get Sean Connery back for one more film for the cost of £1.25 million, a fee unheard of back in that day. Connery accepted and decided to give all the money he made from the film to charity. Sadly, that is the only great thing that came from this mess of a film. Diamonds Are Forever is the 7th official Bond film and was released in 1971, starring Sean Connery as James Bond once again. So we start off by getting the gun barrel sequence and the pre-title sequence as usual. The PTS shows Bond trying to find out where Ernst Stavro Blofeld, this time played by Charles Gray, is hiding. You may remember Gray as Deco Henderson in You Only Live Twice. Bond tracks him down and presumably kills him. Unknowingly, Bond actually kills one of Blofeld's lookalikes. Let me just rant about one important factor for a minute. After the ending of the previous film, you would expect Bond to at least reference the death of his wife, or even show some emotion after presumably killing Blofeld. None of this is evident in the film at all. My guess is that they tried to forget about On Her Majesty's Secret Service because of all the bad rap it got, and made this as a follow-up to You Only Live Twice. Nevertheless, the lack of continuity really pisses me off here. Anyways, back on track. After the PTS, we get the title song sung by Shirley Bassey, who also did the title song for Goldfinger. Unfortunately, this song isn't as good as Goldfinger. I guess I would call it an okay song. After that, we see Bond getting a new assignment which involves him uncovering a smuggling ring involving South African diamonds. Bond disguises himself as professional smuggler Peter Franks and travels to Amsterdam to meet contact Tiffany Case, played by Jill St. John. Jill St. John is the first American Bond girl and does a pretty decent job, but nothing too spectacular. Later on, the real Peter Franks, played by Joe Robinson, shows up and fights with Bond in an elevator. Bond, of course, ends up killing him. Bond and Tiffany then go to Los Angeles, smuggling the diamonds inside the real Peter Franks' corpse. Bond meets up with Felix Leiter, this time played by Norman Burton, and we get a few scenes with the diamonds being smuggled to different people. I really don't want to go into much detail here. It's not interesting and is quite boring, actually. We do get introduced to this film's main henchmen, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, played by Bruce Glover and Putter Smith, respectively. These henchmen happen to be gay and make too many jokes when they kill people. Anyways, the diamonds in Peter Franks are found to be fake by Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, so they leave Bond alone until he gets the real ones. Bond goes to Las Vegas and visits the White House, a casino hotel owned by billionaire Willard White, played by Jimmy Dean. Bond meets Tiffany once again and tells her to retrieve the real diamonds at a circus casino. Tiffany succeeds and the diamonds are given to Bert Saxby, played by Bruce Cabot. Bond follows Saxby's van to a remote facility where he finds out that a satellite is being made by a laser refraction specialist. Bond's cover is blown, but he escapes by stealing a moon buggy, yes, a moon buggy, and reunites with Tiffany. They return to the White House, and later that night, Bond scales the walls to the top floor to confront Willard White. Bond then meets two identical Blofelds who use an electronic device to sound like Willard White. Bond ends up killing the fake one and is knocked out by gas. He is taken to a pipeline by Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, where he is left to die. Bond, of course, escapes and finds out the real Willard White's location. Bond rescues him, but in the meantime, Tiffany gets kidnapped by Blofeld. With the help of White, Bond uncovers Blofeld's plot to create a laser satellite using the diamonds, which is now already in orbit. Blofeld destroys nuclear weapons in China, the USSR, and the US, and proposes an international auction for global nuclear supremacy. White identifies an oil rig off the coast of Baja California as Blofeld's base. Bond goes to the rig, and Leiter and the CIA begin a helicopter attack on the rig. Blofeld attempts to escape on a mini-sub, but Bond gains control of it and crashes it into the satellite control room, causing the base to be destroyed. We don't see Blofeld die, and viewers are supposed to conclude that he doesn't survive. After that anticlimactic finale, Bond and Tiffany head for Britain on a cruise ship where Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd attempt to kill them with a bomb. Bond easily dispatches them both, and the film ends with Tiffany asking Bond how they are supposed to get the diamonds back down from space. If you thought Connery looked older and bored and You Only Live Twice, then you'll be in for a bigger surprise this time. Connery looks really different than in You Only Live Twice and actually looks fairly out of shape. He also phones in his performance to the max. Even his Bond, James Bond line in the PTS is lackluster. He definitely doesn't take the role seriously at all in this one, probably because he didn't want to be in the film in the first place, and it ends up being a joke. The iconic Connery that you all know and love is most certainly absent in this film. Charles Gray as Blofeld is massive miscasting. Gray is a good actor, but as Blofeld he is very bad. Terrible even. Blofeld isn't supposed to have hair and be all jolly all the time, and he most certainly isn't supposed to be a cross-dresser. If you think I'm joking about that last part, watch the film and you'll see. As a whole, Gray's portrayal as Blofeld is one of the worst villains in the series. The usual scenes with M, Moneypenny, and Q are intact with nothing too special, except that we get to see Moneypenny out in the field for the first time instead of behind a desk. Our ally is Felix Leiter, played by the boring and mundane Norman Burton. I would say he's probably the second worst Felix Leiter. Yes, there's actually one who's worse and gets barely any screen time. That won't be discussed for quite a while, though. We get many henchmen and henchwomen in the film, including Shady Tree, Bert Saxby, Peter Franks, Professor Dr. Metz, and Bambi and Thumper. All of these characters are pretty minor, boring, and quite expendable. I won't even get into details about Bambi and Thumper. Our main henchmen are Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd. I actually quite enjoy these two characters for some reason. Some people say that they are the worst henchmen in the series, and those people are most likely right, but there is just something enjoyable about their screen presence. They do make too many dumb jokes, though, and I can see why people hate them. Lastly, we get our Bond girl Tiffany Case, played by the gorgeous redhead Jill St. John. She's okay, I suppose. The character is kind of a klutz and nuisance, but that's how the character is written, so I can't fault her for that. Overall, she's good and looks great in a bikini. There is another girl in the film I should mention named Plenty O'Toole and is played by Lana Wood. She isn't in it for long and only serves the purpose of having such a ridiculous name. The director this time is Guy Hamilton, who directed Goldfinger. Unlike his work on Goldfinger, this one falls way short. He said he was trying to make another Goldfinger, but he failed. Miserably, I might add. The score is pretty solid, nothing I will showcase though to keep this review short. John Barry, of course, returns to compose the score. The plot is pretty lackluster and not the least bit interesting at all during the 2-hour runtime of the film. The action scenes are also lacking and are probably the worst so far in the series. There is an hilariously bad car chase through the streets of Las Vegas which actually includes a pretty good stunt but isn't enough to save the scene. There's a moon buggy chase, which is dumb and laughable. The finale on the oil rig is pretty anticlimactic and stupid. The only great thing about it is the alternate James Bond theme used by John Barry. There is one great fight scene, however, and it's the fight between Bond and Peter Franks inside the elevator. Most of these stunts were done by the actors themselves, and it's a pretty damn fine scene. I would actually call it the greatest part of the film. It's all downhill from there, unfortunately. Oh, and the locations. We get Las Vegas. Whoop-de-doo. Not appealing or exotic in the slightest. Diamonds Are Forever had potential to be a very great Bond film if it had a plot revolving around Bond getting direct revenge for Tracy's death. The end result, however, is very disappointing to say the least. I would imagine that if George Lazenby had stuck around, the film would have been more serious and featured this idea, but that wasn't the case. This film just ends up being a big camp fest. There are a few redeeming factors about this film, such as the elevator fight and Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd, but the negatives vastly outweigh the positives. Is this the worst Bond film in the series? Actually, no. But I would say it's my second least favorite in the official series, and most certainly the first film so far that I could honestly say sucked ass. Many Bond fans also agree. There are actually 4 Bond films worse than Diamonds Are Forever. 3 of them, however, are unofficial, and the worst official film will be coming up fairly soon in the series. That may be a dead giveaway if you are a Bond fan. Regardless, Diamonds Are Forever is a pretty disappointing and bad film, especially coming right after the epic On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I would only recommend watching this one once. I give Diamonds Are Forever a 5 out of 10. Now, as per usual, are my 5 likes and 5 dislikes, starting with my likes. I liked Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd to a certain extent. I found them to be pretty entertaining overall. The elevator fight between Bond and Franks is spectacular. I guess I could say I like Jill St. John as Tiffany Case. John Barry's score is great as usual. Lastly, I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but seeing Moneypenny out in the field instead of behind a desk was a welcoming change. I have way more than 5 dislikes, but here's just the 5 worst things about this film. Connery is pretty crappy as Bond in this one. Charles Gray as Blofeld is just terrible. The plot and action scenes are terrible, with the exception of the elevator fight. There's too much over-the-top campiness and humor that makes this feel like a spoof film. Lastly, the biggest problem is the lack of continuity between this film and the previous one. It's like they didn't care about On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is a shame because that film is easily one of the best. Anyways, there you have it, the first film of a decade that would bring many lackluster Bond films. In the next film, we will see a new Faces Bond. Will it be a welcoming change? Find out next week when I review Live and Let Die. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.